Hi, and welcome to Sussex Pioneers. I'm Joseph Bradfield, PR and Communications Advisor. In this episode on trends, we'll be looking at the power of market research to turn a good idea into a great business. True innovators aren't just idea machines. They're people who know how to pursue a hunch and seek out where in the world it fits. They'll think, I bet that someone out there needs this, and they'll use market insights to find out who that person is. This episode is about how to keep your finger on the pulse of how human behaviours are changing and how you can use that knowledge to get a head start. Now let's hear from Paul Nightingale, Professor of Strategy from the University of Sussex Business School, about the different ways of following trends and insights.
What techniques can you use to understand more about what's going on in the world and how it might impact your business? The first stage in your search for innovation involves identifying where changes are happening. As we've already covered in our first episode, innovation can come from re-examining what you already do, or it can be a response to external market forces. Noticing either kind of opportunity will involve a different type of research. Use industry news and reports to understand the wider trends that are happening, and stay close to your customers to open yourself up to new ideas. What are they asking for? Are there any unusual requests or demands? Next, find ways to test these ideas with a wider audience. Design quick experiments that will tell you whether other customers will pay for these features. It's important to continually learn about developments in your market and find out about how these are impacting your customer base. So where do we search for opportunity? That can vary depending on your business and its sector. The healthcare industry depends on new breakthroughs in science or internal R&D. Manufacturing businesses, on the other hand, are about maximising the value of production. Financial services firms might design creative solutions for customers or develop new service models. Broadly speaking, you want to stay abreast of any new developments in technology, society, governance, or the environment that might impact your sector. Use a combination of surveys, focus groups, and one-on-one conversations to bring these developments in front of your customers and gauge their responses. How are their needs evolving? Where can you make incremental improvements to refine what you already do? How can you explore more radical ideas that are more uncertain but may result in greater rewards? Throughout this period, it's important to remain neutral and objective. Try not to bring preconceived ideas to the table. Instead, ask open questions and encourage your customers to answer fully and honestly. It's very easy to unwittingly steer the conversation towards the answer you're expecting. Let's see some examples of how the most innovative businesses in our region uncover and apply market insights.
In terms of spotting trends is quite difficult, actually. One of the things we've realised is that what's clear and obvious to us isn't clear and obvious to everybody. And it is a meshing together of many different factors, political, social, all of that stuff comes together. A great idea can just be too early, and you've got to get it so that the spotlight is right on it. Otherwise, you spend a lot of time developing something in the near future, and then you can't get scale around it. We've been running over this idea for a few years. I think we were aware, after looking at it a few times, that we're probably too early. The technology didn't exist to actually deliver from a technical point of view, but also I don't think that the critical mass of handheld technology and smartphone technology probably wasn't there. So we pushed it back a couple of times. And this most recent time round, I spent probably 2 months looking into competitor analysis to make sure that we weren't basically doing something that had already been done before. And in doing so, found a really sort of nice, elegant way of delivering the right consumer experience. In terms of keeping on top of trends, it's quite tricky because that's something that we do instinctively. I think one of the first things that I do is I try to divorce myself from social media as much as I can and TV as much as I can. And that's a way of mitigating what's a sort of flash trend and something that's a more like, this is actually something that's going to create social change. So then those ideas kind of come to me, and if it reaches that threshold that it's in my general psyche, then it's in the general psyche. So that's something that I do. In terms of our process, thinking about it now, we take a consumer needs approach. So we really look at what the consumers are asking for, even though they don't know yet exactly what it is. And then we go through ideation phase. And then we go through a kind of due diligence process where we then look at the market to make sure that it isn't about to be done, or it's not needed, or a giant is already on that place and we haven't heard about it. Future trends are incredibly important. Your investors are going to want to hear about them. What's your 3, 5 and 10 year plan? But also you want to make sure that your technology or your business idea doesn't fizzle out with the trend that you're on. So make sure that it's a big trend and is going to change social fabric. I think tokenization is going to, as in crypto, tokenization, trust layer stuff is going to make a big change in the industry, especially in gift cards.
So I actually went for a job interview at a big box sex toy company in Canada, where I was living at the time, and to work as a copywriter for them, because I come from an advertising background. And they were talking about how they were seeing a wellness trend in the sex toy industry, and how they were actually going to pivot towards more of this wellness aspect. And as a result, women were going to become their primary target, as they'd seen a shift from men buying their products predominantly to women. And I just thought that, it's great that they were doing that and providing that space for women. However, it just felt wrong that 2 men were doing this for women. So I thought, why not be the voice for women's pleasure and help that conversation along and pivot towards that wellness for women myself.
If you're coming up with a business idea, if it's going to be appealing to you, then there's going to be someone like you that will also find it appealing. And it's that constant entrepreneurial thing of, looking in the market, what's missing? Am I being spoken to? Am I getting what I want?
Absolutely.
Another trend that I've noticed, and I'm just going to sound like a dinosaur when I say this, is about the internet. When I opened this shop, people couldn't go and find out about what was on the market in terms of sexual pleasure and sexual pleasure products. It just wasn't there. And now you can, I don't know, I think maybe Which might even have a Which sex toy, but they can go to bloggers, they can go to review sites, they can go to sexual educational platforms and find out about their bodies, about what products are out there and which ones are good ones. In the same way that we use TripAdvisor for a hotel, people really come in here armed with facts and research about the things that they're looking for. And so that's very, very definite.
I feel like this body positive movement is also a huge influencer of that. We're being shown bodies that are, for lack of a better word, normal, but, real bodies. And as a result of that, we're seeing a lot less shame, like you're saying.
We innovate and evolve if we can be flexible and go with the times, and that's definitely something that I've tried to do with my businesses. Try to evolve and move with the times, and constantly thinking, how do I keep my business relevant, and how do I stay relevant and even be ahead of the curve.
So let's have our conversation with our experts and businesses on trends. Hello everyone, could you introduce yourselves?
Hi everyone, my name is Calandra Balfour and I'm an adult retailer based in Brighton. My shops are Lust and Taboo in the Lanes.
Hi, I'm Omid Moralmi, CEO of Presence, a social gifting app, also based in Brighton.
Hi, I'm Helena Jevons and I'm Head of Sales and Marketing for Sussex Innovation.
Hello, I'm Claire Pasquale and I'm the Centre Director for Sussex Innovation Brighton.
Great, thanks Claire. So first question, what are trends?
That's a small question, isn't it?
Claire?
I like to use a really simple definition, which is a significant change in how people behave and what they care about.
Right.
But there are also megatrends. So a megatrend might be something that affects more than just one group of people or one country. It's something that affects the whole world. And it creates significant and kind of radical change. An example of megatrend might be the use of GPS-enabled smartphones.
Right.
All over the world, which has radically affected how we live and how we communicate.
That's fascinating. I'm interested to find out why a trend's important to enable you to innovate around ideas.
Trends create radical, disruptive, interesting.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think a useful way of thinking about it is if your business or your business idea is reacting or in relation to a significant trend, then it's like you've got a following wind.
Right, okay.
Or you're riding a wave. And so much radical and disruptive innovation isn't really possible without actually thinking about trends. So a good example might be something like Uber.
Okay.
Really, Uber is only made possible because of something like GPS-enabled phones.
Right.
That enormous trend is what it kind of rode as a wave, the following wind that allowed it to be successful.
Can you see in your businesses some of what Claire's talking about?
Absolutely, I can definitely jump in here. So my shops are adult shops. I sell sex toys, and I think, you know, when you were talking about the description of what a trend is, a mega trend, I think at the moment is sexual wellness and the use of sex toys. I mean, I've had my shops for quite a long time, 17 and 14 years respectively, and I have seen the industry and people's attitude towards sex and sexuality and sex toys change in such a huge way. It's just unfathomable, really. I mean, it's great and it's really, really good, and there's still a lot to go. But yeah, so yeah, I totally know what you mean by trend.
And as you're talking, I'm thinking, well, like, what's driven that? Like, what are the trends behind that explosion?
Yeah.
And I can think of one.
Yeah, but I like to think that apart from the obvious one, it was a lot to do with equality and people improving their communication, and just changes towards how we see sex. And a certain book came along at the right time and kind of just gave everybody a platform to be able to start talking about it. And
What was that?
Oh, the 50 Shades of Grey. I thought that's what you were talking about.
I was thinking about COVID.
Oh,
because I was thinking about people sat at home, bored at home.
I went straight to 50 Shades.
Yeah. 50 Shades.
Same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that had a big effect, did it, on your sales and on...
Definitely.
Did it educate the public of it, do you think?
Absolutely. Wow. And I will say that with the kind of disclaimer that lots of people don't think that the book is good or the information in it was ethical or all the rest of it. But putting all of that aside, it allowed people the chance to have that conversation that really they couldn't before. So what I saw in my businesses is a completely new demographic of people coming in, and majority women going, this is what I want.
It's generally a more relaxed dialogue, isn't it?
Yeah.
For your business idea, did it come from noticing a trend, or is it riding off the back of a trend?
Yeah, so sort of the genesis of the idea was, it's someone's birthday today, and the best I can do is send them a text message.
Yeah. So it's you forgetting people's birthdays, is that?
Essentially, that's where it comes from.
The insights.
The things I do for society. So it was essentially about how do I process that connection through gifting.
Yeah.
And there was no quick, easy way of doing it. The quickest would have been probably Amazon, but that takes 24 hours, which sounds quite slow in today's society.
Yeah.
And on the trend thing, it's like we really looked at the consumers. What is it they want? And speed is the main thing at the moment, especially with everything is on our little device. It's not even a phone anymore. You don't even use it for making calls. You use it for everything else.
Yeah, it's a handheld computer, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. So that has really sped up the trend of instantaneous solutions for everything. Like things that could take a week or 2 weeks, people want now, especially with the younger generation. And we've really seen that uptake with them. Like, I need someone's birthday, I need to send them a gift within 15 seconds. They can do that with our tech.
Yeah.
And that's what we had to produce, something that could satisfy all those elements from the sender to the receiver to get a gift to them instantaneously.
And so what was that moment, if I can ask you, where you had that insight that the combination of immediacies and the sort of importance to us of recognising people's birthdays was an opportunity that you could...
Well, I think just from my background, I bring products to the market. I've been doing that for like maybe 15 to 20 years. So this is something that doesn't come really easy to me, but I'm quite ahead of the curve from most people.
Right.
And it was that thing, right? What is the tool to close gifting, that gifting loop in today's society?
Yeah.
And there wasn't really anything out there, and we were using the wrong tools to do that. So like, I was using, you get alerted on Facebook, that's someone's birthday, then you can complete that cycle within there, or you then go out of Facebook into Google to a website, then you find another company to find a gift, then you sort of go to W.H. Smith to get a card. You're using 4 or 5 different...
It's clunky.
Yeah, and when you actually step back and look at gifting in the whole, you can see that the current trends don't suit what people want at the moment, and it's looking at the consumer needs and wants at that specific time and what they're going to want in the future. And harking back to what you were saying about technology and how that sort of changes things and people's perception of businesses. It was like trying to forethink, okay, this is the product they need in the future.
And it's so interesting, you know, because that degree of immediacy is something we're seeing so much across markets. I just remember how amazed I was when Amazon would do you Amazon Prime and you could get something the next day. And then, you know, absolutely mind-blowing at the time, but it's almost now that's not immediate enough. You know, and everybody wants that Burger King thing of like, I want what I want my way now.
Sussex Innovation, you must be sensing trends all the time because you've got all sorts of businesses coming across your door.
And it's interesting because we're lucky because we're part of a university that we have access to amazing data sources for all sorts of trends, which hopefully we can sort of, you know, help the businesses that need to grow fast by our insight from those. But also we pick that kind of thing up informally as well because we're talking to so many businesses on the phone. You'll suddenly start to go, okay, well, I've talked to 30 businesses in the last 3 weeks. And actually, for the first time, I've had 5 conversations about this.
Yeah, because we've been noticing, haven't we, through some of those conversations with businesses in East Sussex that there's a massive recruitment challenge. And people have been consistently saying on the telephone and in some of the kind of deeper mentoring that we're doing that they're having big challenges around finding the right talent. But there's also much more subtle challenges as well, which has been things like maybe the right talent's available, but they want much more personalisation in the role. So they want to work certain days or not work certain days, or they want a lot of flexibility around the role. And that trend is, it's observable just through the connections that we make through our community.
I want to dig a bit deeper into what you actually do with trends. Why follow them? Why is that important?
An ability to kind of notice and to harness a trend, especially a big trend, especially like a mega trend, or a specific really sticky trend in your sector can help you develop very captivating product. There's a really good example in Depop. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Depop.
K-pop, maybe.
It's a platform for selling secondhand clothes. It's hugely successful. Been trading for a number of years. It's quite similar to eBay, but it has some significant differences. And what it managed to do was capture the wave of around 5 or 6 other trends that were happening. So I guess the big one is a cataclysmic event. 2013, there was the collapse of a factory in Bangladesh. It killed, I think, 1,134 people. That factory had been supplying Primark and Zara, and it came to the world's attention that fast fashion was actually killing people. At the same time, or around the same time, Stacey Dooley made a documentary about fast fashion, and that was about the environmental cost of fast fashion, and effectively about pollution and polluting, and also kind of like stealing water resources from certain communities. At the same time, the third trend that it capitalised on was Greta Thunberg and her environmental activism. And then there were some other trends that were really important to the rise of Depop. One of them was, unlike eBay, what Depop allowed people to do was to create their own shop with their own set of secondhand clothes, which they might have bought in from somewhere else, but it allowed a kind of personalised, brand-led shopping experience.
That's interesting.
For a different generation, really. Depop is aimed at millennials and Z in the main. And then the fifth, or maybe I'm at the sixth one now, I can't remember, is the reduction in high street shopping and the increase in online shopping. And overall, probably due to austerity, the reduction in the amount of money that people were spending on clothes in general. So secondhand is also cheaper. All of those trends allowed Depop to rise pretty quickly because they had evidence when they were seeking investment of what wave they were going to capture.
It sounds like quite a tricky balance, and you've got to have an eye on all sorts of things. And for a larger organisation, a corporate even, it would be difficult. How does an SME answer that challenge?
I think it's interesting. I think it can be done through process and through capturing that data in sort of a formalised way. Of someone who's done it through process. I mean, the example that I always use of these things coming together and somebody hitting the sweet spot, because I sort of see it like a Venn diagram of like, if you can go get the overlap of all those circles that you have something, is actually when Innocent first launched their smoothies. But they absolutely hit the core of 3 trends at the time. And this was Henley Centre data. So the Henley Centre doesn't exist anymore, but at the time that was a very established data source for bigger companies who wanted insight. And their analysis of that was that the launch of Innocent Smoothies perfectly hit the sweet spot between 3 consumer needs at the time, which were convenience, indulgence, and health.
Yeah.
And so it brought those 3 things together. So again, the question is interesting, isn't it? And I'd be interested from your point of view, because I think one of the things that we see in entrepreneurs is they tend to act much more instinctively or much more from the gut, perhaps, than a corporate would act, where they want a lot more data to sell that in. Absolutely. And so whether, they were doing that from an instinct, or whether they were doing that from data, or whether they were doing that from intuition, I don't know the answer to that question. But definitely there's something where you sense something, or you analyse something, and I think that can happen in different ways. So what was your...
I think for us, we're trying to push the last mile delivery on the actual receiver to, again, minimise everything. But like you say, it's that small, £5 glass of wine. It's not the biggest amount of money, but that £5, the way we wrap up emotionally, it's limitless almost.
Do you know what I think is really interesting is that I feel like both of you have touched on trends in the retail market, which are almost contradictory but still service people. So, Calandra, you've talked before to me about how post the pandemic, people are enjoying the theatre of being in a shop again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas Omid, you're talking about that trend about in the moment and making and really trying to prioritise that.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Both things can be true. Both trends can be true and still quite powerful.
I think the common thing,
That's right, there you go.
The common thing for me about the 2 experiences, though, is I think that one of the trends we observe is that very much everybody's moving away from a culture of having more and more stuff and spending their money on more and more stuff and wanting experiences. So that sort of feeling of we only live once. And both of you feel like you're delivering to that. The experience of coming to your shop is very different than ordering a sex toy from Love Honey, and the experience of going to get your glass of wine is very different than... So would you say that's true?
Absolutely, and especially, we've all been locked up for 2 years periodically, intermittently, people are desperate to go out. They want to go out, they don't just want to sit at home waiting for the postman. They're like, how can I use this day? And I do think the idea of hitting the shops on the weekend is definitely waning, and it was waning, it's been waning over the past few years, definitely. I can see it just in the footfall, and you walk through your local shopping centre and they're all closing, and there just doesn't have that buzz. Oxford Street is quiet.
I think you guys are showing one of the important behaviours of an innovator and of a successful entrepreneur, which is around this kind of curiosity
I was
and
just going to get into that.
open-mindedness, because I think this kind of trend spotting is something that a lot of corporations are really good at. But actually, SMEs can do it just as well. And I think that some of the people that we've worked with, some of the ways that they're able to trend spot are pretty simple, actually. So, and the first one I would say is around being really curious. And so especially if you're interested in creating consumer products or consumer services, it's about listening to your family and your friends and your colleagues, and having your ear open to what are they complaining about? What are they excited about? What are they spending their money on? And being tapped in and allowing that to kind of generate your creativity and your imagination. And but there's a few things people can do. I guess that's one of them. Another one is much more relevant for kind of B2B viewers, is being able to kind of tap into things like LinkedIn and your sector, keeping your eye on what people are talking about, what the challenging issues are in the sector, and what clients and customers are saying. Makes such an enormous difference to your ideation around innovation.
And the industry as well. Sorry, it's you've got to sort of, if there's any regulations in your industry that are going to come in 5 to 10 years time, it's forward seeing that and thinking, how do you navigate that? And make sure you don't succumb to any sort of, we've got to do that now, have we? I think, oh, great. No,
Absolutely agree. And one of the things that, we know because of the things that we're looking out for on behalf of all the businesses we work with and that we serve through Sussex Innovation is all the environmental legislation that's coming down the line. So we've got an eye on that and on developing ways to support the businesses who maybe haven't got their eyes on that because they've, just got through COVID, just got through Brexit, just got through
really
all of those things.
It's one of the reasons I failed at it when I was running a business, is that I was so focused on that detail and at times in survival mode, and I didn't chunk up to looking at what is going on, what is happening in the world, what's happening with the clients.
And I think that's such an interesting point, both being curious about your customer, and a lot of the businesses that we've seen talking, making these shows and making the courses we've been making have been genuinely curious. Like, they want to know what their consumer genuinely thinks, so they want to change their product and iterate to deliver that. But then the other thing that plays to your point really is the fact that one of my mantras really is always go and look at what your competition is doing. Like, mystery shop them, go into their shops, go onto their apps, look what the consumer experience is like, and look at how you can do it better.
That's a great conversation. Thanks, everyone. And I've got a clip to show you.
Talking about the future seems so difficult when the world changes so quickly, right? Not many economists or tech experts can answer with confidence what they envision 5 years from today, with new technologies, horizons, and industries being shaped. Some believe that a crystal ball is needed, but our recommendation is keeping your eyes and ears wide open to learn from everything around us. Let's take a look at some megatrends impacting the global economy. Following the pandemic, 2022 seems set to resume business as usual, but the war in Ukraine saw dramatic upheaval on gas supplies, rocketing energy and food prices. This had direct impact on consumer spending and consequences for business on products from Ukraine and Russia. The metaverse and meta-societies are the most recent example of how digitalization is changing how we live, work, and play through virtual reality. It's already transforming sectors in e-commerce, entertainment, education, fashion. Other examples of megatrends are the net zero commitment and the shift in environmental, social, and governance initiatives, the future of work, and the rise of crypto coins and blockchain technologies. Now, let's take a quick look at examples of megatrends impacting microtrends in specific industries. Ready to build a cleaner future? We are seeing sectors, such as construction, migrating to more sustainable production models. A great example is road construction, adapting the process to recycle and transform aggregate waste to a stronger and greener road building products. There are seismic shifts in wellness and healthcare sector. This has never been so dominant in our minds. From femtech to mental health, innovation of products and services include redefining beauty for everybody, to a smorgasbord of meditation apps and guides, and corporate wellness services. Finally, for the retail sector, online shopping caused a shift away from the traditional high street shopping. Now we see the advent of virtual reality, robots in stores, and drones making deliveries to our doorsteps. I hope this overview has sparked your curiosity to look for more trends. Remember that market research is not a magic crystal ball. It's a panorama of opportunities and challenges.
So what I'm really interested in, to kick us off, is how do you create a future trend? How do you become part of the zeitgeist? How's it done?
Good question. I think one thing I sort of experience is if you see people with creative vision that can see what the consumer needs and creating that market or that product or service to fit that area.
Right.
And having that passion to drive it through. I think that's one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs have inside them. And once they get success, because they understand what those trends are, then you see the Me Too companies following suit. Apple's a great example of that. Everyone did smartphones in a certain way using buttons or keyboards. They said, no, we're going to do a rectangle screen, and now every smartphone follows that trend.
Right.
So it's having that creative vision and saying, that's how I think it should be done. Some things are clear and obvious to certain people in the industries. They just see something that we just miss and then bring it to the market and think, when I think of that, then they're already gone in a way and got the market share.
And one of the things I think that's been really interesting recently in your sector has been the way that a trend has emerged as a result of a patent expiring. So there's this really interesting patent in Calandra's area, which has been dubbed the teledildonics patent. So that expired in 2018, and that controlled anybody being able to innovate and capitalise on the idea of a sex toy being able to be remotely controlled.
Right.
And so since the expiration of that patent, there has been an explosion in the innovation, and that's driven trends in your market, hasn't it, that you've seen?
It really has. The explosion of app-controlled toys is huge, and actually, that ties in slightly to one trend that I've noticed. And again, this is listening. So this is just customers coming into the shop requesting a certain toy, which I've now pieced it together. So it's an American brand, and it's not very well known here. But OnlyFans people use it. So people who are camming. So it's a toy that will vibrate if somebody pays some money to something.
Right.
So this is how the cam girls are getting money, and so again, it's noticing a trend in that. And my assistants, who work in the shop, they were calling out, going, "Do you know what this thing is?" I'm like, "Why are people asking about it?" I'm like, "Oh, okay."
So that trend has been driven by people seeing it on TikTok or seeing it on
OnlyFans.
Okay.
But it's the teledildonics
Yeah.
thing, so that's one of the things that it is.
I keep coming back to that point about, as far as SMEs are concerned, how do they know what to look for and when to look for it? There are people out there that catch those things just at the right time. What are they doing that's different to everybody else?
Well, I guess we covered off a couple of the things around being very curious and open-minded and listening. But I mean, Calandra's just alluded to a massive one. Watch the news. Like, what is happening in the world?
So keep your eyes open.
Because, one of the things that is likely to come, in my view, which is about, future trend spotting, one of the things that will come from the war in Ukraine and from countless other wars, which are effectively, a lot of them, about finite resources, is that consumers will want to be able to map where their resources come from. And at the moment, if you're a customer of an energy supplier that's green energy, you're able to see where your energy is being made from a green or CO2 perspective, but you're not currently able to map where it's coming from in the world and and what your values and ethics are around that. But there's a massive opportunity there from an innovation perspective.
Have you guys ever made any mistakes or followed trends that led you nowhere?
Plenty
Thousands.
of mistakes.
And none you're going to tell me. Is there anything you think you can share that people can learn from?
On my previous project, I was working in the nicotine industry. So we were slightly late to the vape game. What we tried to do was reinvent old technology in that industry. Beautiful looking product, great flavours, but the actual tech itself was, first generation. We missed the mark completely. People said, it looks great. If you had that, 2 years ago, you would be market leaders. But this is the new product now. Even though it looks horrible and tastes horrible, it's new tech. So we literally didn't do any real consumer research. We just thought we know best and we're going to apply that to it.
Right.
Failed miserably. But it taught us, the next product that we did launch was, future-proofing a generation. And you've got to make mistakes, especially if you're an SME. A lot of SMEs, they're nimble. They can pivot towards new trends a lot better than larger companies can. So I think, that's one key to being an SME, is just pivot to a new trend, and then they often then become the big company further down the line.
I'd really echo that. I've had experiences in big companies where they've had attachments to the way they do things, or so many layers of decision making that they can't move fast, or legacy asset bases where they've got a manufacturing line that works in a certain way. And so they've got all these constraints around them which actually make it very difficult to turn the ship quickly. And so what they'll see is a challenger brand come in, but they'll choose in some cases not to play in that market because either they won't take it seriously because there's a little bit of arrogance, I think, or they're not prepared to disinvest in very efficient, maybe legacy manufacturing lines to invest in moving to a co-packer where maybe they've got to give away more margin or something like that. And so actually the advantage for SMEs is you haven't got that physical infrastructure in a manufacturing sense, and you've got the ability to be much fleeter of foot. And we talked about that as well, didn't we, in terms of the platform that Moonpig has, because they were sort of pre the app era. They've got physical manufacturing assets that actually, if you were developing that business now, you wouldn't necessarily
invest in. Their whole business model is printing presses around the world and physical gifts, getting theirs, which was pre-smartphone. So for us, our product was all designed post-smartphone to allow us to hit the trend of instantaneous, which is something they just can't do. And I think that it will be a long time before they actually tell the shareholders we're going to completely pivot to a digital offering. It's too risky for them and too slow.
I'd just like to go round and ask everyone, if you were sat in front of an SME at the moment and they needed, or they had a hunger for trends and wanted to understand it, what advice would you give them? Calandra, can you go first?
I mean, I've said it before, but I think it's really listen. So if we're talking an SME that's already been set up, so I think call up your top 5 biggest clients or regular clients and just talk to them. What are we doing well? What are we doing badly? What do you think that we could do that you get somewhere else at the moment that we could offer? You know, speak to your clients first of all, 100% of customers.
Fantastic, thank you.
I'd probably look at your market and look at the negativity in that market and try and give the consumer what they're asking for, because that's going to drive the next generation of trends, because at the end of the day you want to get that money from their pocket into yours. And if there's literally publicly saying your rival is doing this badly, do it well, and they'll come across.
That simple.
That simple.
Yeah,
that's business.
Thanks so much.
They've stolen my two. So I'm going to go with talk to the other people within your organisation, because they will be having conversations with customers on the shop floor or through customer service interfaces, all those kind of things. And they will have a lot of knowledge that maybe is untapped in terms of actually what is going on in those micro transactions with people. And that can be where the gold is.
Great, so listen out to all the voices within the organisation. Fantastic.
Going forth, it's very hard.
All the good stuff's been said, hasn't it, Claire?
Yeah, but I do think one of the things that can be helpful, and it's almost a bit about looking inside, is think a bit about whether, in terms of your innovation or the trend, do you want to work on pain, i.e. spotting pain, spotting difficult things, or do you want to work on the excitement end, so basically making something like TikTok?
Yeah.
And really weigh in on that, because then that will kind of channel. There are other things, but you know, for me, pain and excitement, they're quite different. That will channel the kind of conversations you have, because so much of this, if you're an SME, is about your own energy and about your own curiosity. So if you can kind of like figure out what you're most going to be interested in, is it going to be solving pains, or is it going to be about delighting and exciting, and then channel that into the conversations that you're having.
Thanks so much for the conversation, everyone. I really, really appreciate it. I think we've got some really good pieces of advice for our SMEs. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks.
For business owners, there is both an opportunity and a threat in trends. The opportunity is to use some key practices to stay ahead of even leverage consumer trends and the macro and microeconomic factors which drive them. The threat is ignoring these vital drivers of business growth and allowing the competition to capitalise on them instead. I'm Anne Fay, Market Research and Insights Advisor at Sussex Innovation. I draw on my background as an advertising strategist and trends researcher to help our SME clients identify actionable insight through trends. This can be done in a number of ways. Firstly, desk research. Secondly, qualitative research. Thirdly, quantitative research, and often a combination of all three. At Sussex Innovation, we always start with desk research, as it is easily accessible. Simply paying attention to popular culture can uncover drivers and clues to trends. Drivers are the consumer motivators, urges, and imperatives which create trends. Clues are the glimpses of a trend which can be spotted in popular culture. Here are simple tools and practices which you can put in place to help spot consumer trends in action. Firstly, read the press. Get into the habit of consuming and questioning lifestyle features in the media as well as the business coverage. Think about why a particular consumer trend, such as staycations or glamping, is happening and why it merits coverage. Try to trace it back to consumer needs and economic or societal drivers. Secondly, for business-to-business trends, industry-specific publications such as Business of Fashion for fashion and Building Magazine for the construction industry are an excellent place to start. There will be a specific publication or even publications for your industry. Industry publications which cover huge sectors, such as the grocer for grocery shopping, will similarly have applicable and actionable insight for your category. Questions to ask yourself when trend hunting include: is this a fad or a trend? A fad is usually something industry created, like unicorns in the children's toy industry, which feed consumer engagement. Cute, pink, fantastical, but not necessarily deep consumer needs. That doesn't mean that a powerful product or service trend cannot be born out of a fad, but this is a useful discipline to have when seeking genuine consumer drivers. For example, streetwear and trainers in particular continue to grow share in fashion at the expense of formal wear. This is because consumers genuinely want functional clothing and apparel. The ongoing casualisation of the workplace and of our daily lives, again supercharged by the pandemic, has given greater context for this. Another question to ask is there a pattern here? And what is enabling it? In trends thinking, there is a definition that 2 is a coincidence and 3 is a trend. Patterns can be spotted cross-category. One example is the consumer trend for home-based comfort as spotted through 3 examples. 1, the rise of Netflix and chill in entertainment. 2, food delivery in hospitality. And 3, the dominance of athleisure in clothing. Also, don't forget the trend for home-based comfort has been enabled by enormous advancement in technology. Innovation in each category, streaming in home entertainment, software as a service in home delivery, and fabric technology in clothing was also a driver. Consider what else is affecting society. For example, the rising cost of living and stagnating wages, culture wars and digital transformation. To wrap up, trends are all around you. Your opportunity is to spot and leverage them for your business growth.
Thanks for watching. In our next episode, we'll be looking at how lean principles can help you to do things easier, faster, better, and cheaper. Make sure you join the conversation with our business community by clicking on the Discuss button found on the Learning platform. Also, keep an eye out for the next Q&A session, where our experts will be online and ready to answer your questions around researching trends.